Hello and welcome back to the second module of this week's contents. We are talking about pivot tables. I'm so excited to share to talk about pivot tables because this is one of the tool or skill that you as a data analyst should know how to use in spreadsheets. Let's view this material as we read a little bit about pivot table before going into the practical demonstration. So a pivot table is a data summarization tool used in spreadsheets programs like Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, right? It always allow you to recognize and summarize selected columns and rows for data from a larger table or database. Now, with pivot tables, you can quickly analyze and compare large amounts of data in more organized and meaningful way, making it easier to identify patterns, trends, and relationships within the data. So, how do you open pivot table in Google Sheets? Let's just go that. Let's show you how to do that practically. Okay, head over to the data we're working with. That is the VG sales, and when you click on data, you find no, I think insert, pardon me, you find the pivot table just beneath the chart option. Click on pivot table. Once you select pivot table, it asks you, okay, create pivot table for the data range. Yes, it has correctly selected all data range from A1 to K 16,599, which is just fine. Do you want to insert it in a new sheet or in this existing sheet where the data is stored? Of course, I want it to be on a new sheet. I'll leave the option selected and click on create. So once you click on create, the pivot table is selected and this works just like magic. All right, so you have the pivot table editor, right? And you have these rows and columns, values, kind of what's it called again? Table being presented right here. Okay, with from this table you can form a contingency table. Okay, don't worry, you see what I mean by contingency table in a bit. Now there are suggestions of different rows and columns that Google Sheets is bringing up for us. So it's saying, hey guy, do you want to create a pivot table for the sum of NA sales, EU sales, JP sales, other sales, global sales for each publisher, right? Or you want to you want to construct, create a pivot table for the sum of NA sales for each publisher by year, or do you want to see the pivot table for the sum of NA sales, EU sales, JP sales, other sales, global sales for each publisher by year? Okay, let us play around with these suggestions from Google Sheets and see how this is going to be presented. Once you check this box, this is going to be created automatically. All right, so you have the publisher, right? And you have the sum of the different sales listed. Okay. And when you check this out, you can see what I mean by a contingency table, right? You can click here to view. Okay. I think that is all about the data that is being presented. Let's scroll down and scroll down to see the last publisher's name and the sum that is being produced for you. We have a grand total at this level that is for each column, and I think okay, so and we have each of these sums, right? So this is like a pivot table. I mean, a what do I call this? This is a pivot table, right? That was in my code it earlier. I just escaped my mind. So with this, it shows that okay, this particular Tentacle Studio is a publisher name. It has a sum of NA sales of 0.07, a sum of EU sales of 0.04, a sum of JP sales of 0.11, and it gives you this distribution in all of the different regions and categories, right? This is great, right? Very, very awesome. So you can see how why we said pivot table is a great tool for data analysts. You can quickly see a summary of your data by creating pivot table for each. Okay, let's come over to this place and check this second suggested option. We want to see the sum of NA sales for each year by for each publisher by year. When you select that, that would show you the sum of any. Okay, great. So it says, oh, this publisher called Tentacle Studios do not have any sales in 1980, 1981, 1982, 83, 84. Okay, this person do not have any sales except for 2006 and 7, and then it goes on, and that was just those 2 years That was these are the years that the publisher had sales, just 2006 and 2007. And you can see a grand total for each publisher, right? You can also, when you scroll down, you also find a grand total for each year. Okay, this is what I call a contingency table. Here is a grand total for each year, right? And there's also a grand total for each publisher. All right, so that is how to create pivot table. Very, very simple to create and very easy to have a kind of summary or a kind of conclusion. Give a summary of a data, see an overview of a data. Okay, now that is all about using this suggested columns or suggested, yeah, columns to create your pivot table. Say you want to create a pivot table by yourself. Now these are other options. You can add rows of interest, you can add columns of interest, values, and filters. Okay, assuming I want to create, check out the sales. Let's go ahead and select for different platforms, right? For different platforms. So these are the platforms, right? So what's the sales like for different platforms? I choose values. My values, I want what's the sales in this region called JP sales like for different platforms. And you can see for the platform 2600, we have zero sales for JP region. For the platform 3D0, we have 01 sales. For the platform 3DS, we have 97.3 sales. For DC, we have 8.56 sales. DS, we have 175.76 sales, and so on and so forth. And this is a grand total. Now we can see the different region sales by each platform by adding more values. Okay, so we can add another value, say for NA sales. I can add another value, say um for EU sales. I can add another value, say for other sales, JP sales, global sales. You can add as many values as possible, and that will give you a distribution of how each platform sold their games for different regions. So I can do a quick comparison by looking at these regions. Now, one other interesting thing about this pivot table is the ability to allow you to create charts quickly and have a very, very insightful chart. So with this particular pivot table I've created, I can just head over to the insert option and click on chart. And once you click on chart, a chart will be created. So you can see that it has created a chart for you for this sales, the JP, some of JP and some of global sales against each platform here. All right, you have the liberty to change whatever, however you want to see it, and then to make it appear just as what you want. All right, so that is that. Because this is having tiny tiny lines because of the type of what's it called now, because of the number of platforms we have. So from here you can already see quickly that we have a very high global sales for this particular platform called X1. X1 had the highest global sales, very very large a value. All right, this is amazing. Let's move on. We can take off these all of these columns and then try out something else. Let's just take off these columns and try out another pivot. Okay, table. Okay, I do not want this platform again. So let's say you want to add a row of, let's look at the year, and I want to see how the global sales perform for each year. Values, I want to add the global sales for each year of this product. Once you do that, you see the distribution of the global sales for each year. And with this, you can make a plot, a line plot, and as you can see, automatically the year is being arranged in an ascending order, unlike when we created the line chart initially when we are learning about charts in our previous video for last module. We had to do some sorting, filtering ourselves to make the year show correctly from on the chart. But with pivot tables, once you create the pivot table, go ahead and insert a chart, and this will be created automatically with the year being arranged appropriately. Let's select aggregate. You see that I don't have any need to go and start rearranging or sort the year in a given order because it is already arranged for me, which makes life very easy. And it gives you a title, sum of global sales versus year. So it means that this is the sum of global sales for each year, and you can see the trend how the sales increases and gets to this at 2008 and 2009 is where they have, I think 2008 is where they have the peak sales for the global year. At 2009 it came down again a little bit, and then it's kept on coming down and coming down until it gets to 2017, had a very terrible sales. All right. And 2020, I think that shop closed up. I mean, the sales in that in the global sales for all for the game production just closed up, or something just happened around that year. So that is just the trend. A very interesting insight gotten from this trend when you create a pivot table and then create charts from there. So there are lots of cool stuff, lots of cool things, lots of interesting things to do with pivot tables. You can actually add a filter, right? You can add a filter to say, okay, I want to filter by platform. So these are the year, right? So let's just add a filter and say we want to filter by platform. Once we add a filter, okay, now this is showing all items from this filter. I can say, okay, I do not want to see all items. I want to see just the one for 2006, and then click on OK. Once you click OK, the sum you're seeing, these are the sales for 2006. And for 2006 platform, it had sales just between 1980 all up to 1989. If you choose another platform to say, okay, I don't want to see for 2006, I want to see for 3DO. For 3DO, this is the display. Oh, for just 3 years, 1981, 1994, and 1995. These are just the 3 years that they had sales in of that platform. 093, 0.02, 0.8, 0.08. And let's check out for DC. When you select DC, click OK. It shows you the the sum of global sales for each year for that platform called DC. If you want to take out this platform, the filter, just click on the X button, takes it out, and can just keep on exploring each of these pivot tables. So this is what we mean by pivot table. We would learn how to create some interesting charts and make out a dashboard using the pivot table in another video. Please, I'd like you to check this out, explore pivot tables, do a lot of cool stuff with pivot tables, and let me know your experience. Share your experience about how excited you are to discover this tool in Google Sheets, and what else you discover outside what this video had covered. All right, thank you for watching this. I'll see you again in the next one. Goodbye.